When we look at Legend of Zelda games, traditionally they have been very linear experiences, with temples and dungeons in a set order for players to traverse through. A Link Between Worlds shifted this idea to more of an open world approach. Breath of the Wild extended this new approach through the entire game, from the world itself to the items players use. My name is Hexovian, joined by my friend Hyrule Gamer, and welcome to the first episode of the Hyrule Study.
This is the classic Zelda formula, how you play Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Minish Cap, and the rest of the games. A format where you unlock areas one by one, often associated with a dungeon. This formula has worked for over 25 years and would definitely still make a banging Zelda game if it was used now. Having to beat a dungeon or do some sort of quest in order to progress to the next area in the game makes you feel motivated. It really does motivate you to go and unlock that next area. You'd often get a glimpse of the next area or section of the game, then be presented with a challenge like a dungeon or overworld boss, like the fight against King Bublin in Twilight Princess. It's very different to having complete freedom like in Breath of the Wild, but definitely not above or below it as far as entertainment goes. With linear gameplay, there is more exciting, intense moments where you get yourself into a battle with no escape and you're forced to take on a few enemies, and it's often within a closed location with no escape. Whereas with open world, you could just run away from that. Linear gameplay offers more of a challenge and a bit more edge, I'd say.
Since Ocarina of Time was released, Zelda has followed a very set path based around a few dungeons, followed by the Master Sword, and then a few more dungeons before finishing it off with a final boss battle. Following this set path meant that players were seeing this story as the developers wanted players to see and feel, at the cost of potential mechanics that could have been implemented to make the game more enjoyable for players. On the plus side, this did mean the game would have almost zero potential to confuse players like some open world games can. It also meant any side quests or collectible items were made with care and reason, which is another issue some open world games series suffer with. I love linear stories mainly because it doesn't mean investing hundreds of hours and being able to re-experience a game over a weekend. Unfortunately, Nintendo stuck with the same story for about 15 years, and you can see that in the sales of Zelda, it needed to find a new direction.
So, the open formula that was brought to the Zelda series with Breath of the Wild was really good. Going into it, I wasn't really a fan of the idea, and was on the side of, this is going to break the Zelda series and ruin it. But I was very wrong. This change to an open world was a breath of fresh air and really brought the series to a whole other level. The ability to quite literally go anywhere you want was amazing, and there were literally no restrictions. If you saw something interesting in the distance like the Julian Peaks or the Bridge of Hylia, you could just go straight there. Whether in past games you couldn't and had to wait to progress to that area. That sense of freedom also makes you want to explore, want to get sidetracked, and want to discover new things in the game. It has you coming back for more every single time. The only real thing this formula lacks, in my opinion, is traditional dungeons. They sort of had to be dropped, which is the only downside to me personally.
Gaming has changed over the past decade, especially regarding open world games and giving players almost complete control over the story and how they approach things. With new hardware and capabilities, gaming slowly is moving towards bigger and larger games, and I love this. I feel like we are in an amazing time for gaming, with many large games coming out over the next year that you'll be able to push hundreds of hours into. Breath of the Wild pushed the boundaries of what Zelda is by throwing most of the old techniques out of the windows. It truly was like playing an entirely new IP. I loved Breath of the Wild, but I can personally say that some of the mechanics taken out almost took away the identity of the series for me. My best example of this would have to be the dungeons, or, well, the lack thereof. The shift towards a more choose-your-own adventure story meant the game lacked a strong story in my opinion, or much reason to continue along with the main story. So, ultimately, what do I think is better, open world or linear Zelda games? Well, I obviously love the old nostalgic feel I get when I play older Zelda games, but going into the future, I would love to see more open world games with the adoption of some of the old mechanics.
Now, I am not saying I want the next few games to be linear, as I believe the open world thing Zelda has going on right now is what's right for the series. But when you compare them, I find much more enjoyment and excitement out of linear gameplay. There is constantly something to work towards, not so much by pressuring you, but by motivating you if you like. Breath of the Wild's open style removes that motivation factor to do the main quest, hence why it's a more relaxing experience. Me personally, I believe linear gameplay is better than open world gameplay.